And you will see a really great photo that's going to be explained by our friend Rufus Ward. He's a columnist for the Dispatch in Columbus, Mississippi, and he recently shared that September 17th was the 50th anniversary of the classic television show M.A.S.H. Any M.A.S.H. fans out there? And then Rhino let us know that today is the 70th in-universe anniversary of Colonel Potter taking over as commanding officer of M.A.S.H. So joining us to make the Mississippi connection is Rufus. Hey, Rufus.
Hey, Rebecca.
I read this and got super excited. I thought this is a lot of fun. I bet a lot of folks enjoyed the show M.A.S.H. or the books or the movies or whatever and had no idea that there was a Mississippi connection. So explain it to us.
Okay. Actually, a strong connection. Dr. Henry Holloman in Columbus actually commanded the M.A.S.H. unit that M.A.S.H. was based on. And Dr. Agrippa Kellum in Tupelo was one of the surgeons, and he was portrayed probably in the book and movie as Dr. Forrest and Duke Forrest. And Dr. Hornbrenner, who wrote M.A.S.H., was close friends with both of them and would visit them in Mississippi, and the book revolved out of their experiences in the 8055 M.A.S.H. in Korea.
Really cool stuff.
So it's, a real strong Mississippi connection. And a lot of people also didn't realize a lot of the things that happened in the movie and the television program were actually based loosely on real events. The unit itself was really highly recognized because they helped pioneer vascular surgery. They were involved in the early use of artificial kidneys that became dialysis. And in 1951 and 1952, they had a 97% survival rate for over 5,000 wounded soldiers they treated. Unreal what they did.
And all that was portrayed, too, by the relationships with, those that lived in Mississippi, with the gentleman who wrote the book. And then, I know that the swamp, which was a big part of the show, the M.A.S.H., what significance did it have? It really existed right there out in the field?
The swamp was a real place, complete with the West African symbol as a charm against the evil eye hex painted on the door. The swamp itself was where both Hornbrenner and Kellum and a doctor by the name of Dickerson from New York lived. It was named after Dickerson's college room in New York. It was called the Swamp. So it was real and was kind of an interesting place there in 1951 and 52, just like in the movie.
I think it's cool, too, that M.A.S.H. ran for longer than the actual Korean War. I think it was so popular. Why do you think, Rufus, that it really resonated with people during that time?
Partly because the Vietnam War was going on. And secondly, it was just a good story. And I know from talking with Dr. Holloman, I knew him when he was practicing, that some of the events that he told me about, I remember seeing in the television shows. Apparently, at times, the TV producers would call him and say, we need an interesting event that occurred that would be good for television. And he would tell them a story that often became one of the TV shows. The significance, though, at the time really can't be understated. Dr. Holloman, after he got home, was honored by Queen Elizabeth and Prince Philip and named a member of the Order of the British Empire, which in chivalry is an order right below knighthood. And it was because they were given in the M.A.S.H. unit credit for treating and saving the lives of over 1,000 British soldiers.
Look at there. And all things that we just...
That struck me, with Queen Elizabeth's recent passing, that struck me she had actually honored Dr. Holloman.
How do you find all this information out, Rufus? I know you're a great historian of all things Columbus, where you live and reside, but it feels like you're able to uncover all of these wonderful kept secrets, or not really secrets, just untold stories about our state and the people, who live there, primarily that called Columbus home. But do you have family members that just, help you get the word out, or how do you find this stuff?
I do. This was an easy one, though. The Hollomans were friends with my parents when I was growing up, and I knew Dr. Holloman and knew the family, and so I've always known the story. And with the 50th anniversary of M.A.S.H., I thought, that's something that would be good to get out in the paper and let people know the local ties and what happened. There are a lot of stories out there. I fortunately grew up in a family that would sit on the front porch, and the adults would have their bourbon and the children would have their lemonade, and I grew up listening to stories.
Rufus, when did you first find the book M.A.S.H? Did you find the book first and then the television show, and then obviously came the connection to Mississippi? But when was your aha moment that the show or the book that you adored so much had someone living in your hometown?
The first moment was the movie, and then the television show, and then I tracked the book down and read it. And in addition, Dr. Holloman wrote an autobiography called Unbroken Chain, and in it, he talks a lot about M.A.S.H. and actually has a photograph of the swamp, has a photograph of helicopters landing carrying wounded. The scene looks just like the opening scene in the movie and in the television program. And a lot in there, and some from stories Dr. Holloman would tell me, and some from that members of his family would tell me. I had started kindergarten with his daughter. So, again, just a long-time connection.
Did Dr. Holloman ever get to go to the set of M.A.S.H. or maybe have like a guest appearance? I feel like, he needed his moment on the big screen since he helped inspire so much of it.
To my knowledge, he didn't. Probably when I hang up, I'll call and ask. But I know that Kellum and Holloman and Hornberger spent a lot of time together over the years. They became close friends for the rest of their lives. And they would visit in Maine, and he was from Maine, and he would come to Mississippi and visit.
The Holloman family still resides there in Columbus, correct, Mr. Rufus?
No, they have scattered out. His daughter, Jenny, lives in Starkville, and son lives in North Carolina, and another daughter lives in Mobile.
Well, I know they appreciated you taking time making the connection there for the M.A.S.H. lovers of the world in Mississippi to someone who was a hometown, military serviceman. And then, too, I like on the text line, Chris from Oxford says, I have to be honest, I never knew exactly what M.A.S.H. stood for. And I get tickled, Chris, because I had Rhino sort of school me before too. And that's, what does it stand for, Rufus?
Stands for Mobile Army Surgical Hospital. It developed really out of the need that showed up in World War II to get people quickly from the front lines to medical treatment. And actually, most of the M.A.S.H. units, and the 8055 wasn't the only one, it was just the one that was a subject of the book and movie and TV, they were generally set up about 3 miles behind front lines. One of the stories I remember from Dr. Holloman was that one day he and another doctor were headed to Parmesan, mispronounced, but at any rate, they took a wrong turn and came on a bunch of Marines in fortified foxholes and said, where are we? And they said, you're about 300 yards from the North Korean troops, and the Chinese troops get out of here before they start firing artillery at your Jeep. Well, they turned around, and as they were leaving, artillery shells started dropping around the Jeep. Well, I remember that as one of the M.A.S.H television programs, except I think it was Colonel Blake and Radar who were in the Jeep. So they really did use the stories he told.
Well, I love the stories you tell every Sunday in your column there in the Dispatch. Rufus, I'm going to make a link to the Good Things Facebook group for any M.A.S.H fans out there that want to go and read the entire article about the Mississippi Connection. I appreciate your time, and I look forward to having you back soon.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
All righty, you guys stick with us. We got more for you.